Hello. So in this video, we're going to talk about Geoffrey Chaucer's poem To Rosemounde, a Balade.
Geoffrey Chaucer's the name. Writing's the game. Chaucer? Geoffrey Chaucer, the writer?
This is obviously one of Chaucer's more minor works, as opposed to something like the Parliament of Fowls, the Book of the Duchess, or the Canterbury Tales, his real masterpiece. This is a single poem, but it's an interesting poem because it is a chivalric love poem. And so it represents this distinctive style of writing and courtly culture that had a lot of currency in the medieval period, right? So some of the characteristics, for instance, of chivalric poetry tends to be, they tend to be love-based, right? They tend to be about admiration for a beloved, an idealized beloved in particular, someone who the poet persona is writing to as this sort of embodiment of perfection and virtue and chastity and Christian piety, all of these things, all the things that you want in an ideal, particularly aristocratic love partner in the medieval period. And so Chaucer is going through these kinds of tropes. So if we start with just the first stanza, it is, and I'm going to try and read this in Middle English. Be aware my Middle English is not amazingly good. I learned to read Middle English almost, I don't know, probably about 18 years ago, 17 years ago, and I have not done it consistently since. Madame, ye ben of all beauty shrine, as fair as circled is the mappamound, for as the crystal glorious ye shine, and like a ruby ben your cheeks round, therewith ye ben so merry and so jocond, that at a revel one that I see you dance, it is an ointment unto my wound, though ye to me ne do no dalliance. So that's the first stanza. If we sort of put that in more contemporary English, I will try and sort of translate this. Madam, you are the shrine of all beauty, as far as the world around is circled. For you shine like a glorious crystal, and like a ruby are your cheeks rounded. Round might be better sort of modernized as something like red or cheery. I'm not 100% sure. The idea of a ruby as inherently round seems very odd to me. R-O-U-N-D-E seems like it should mean round, R-O-U-N-D in modern English. I'm wondering if there's some connection maybe to like rouge, which would mean red. I don't know. That's pure speculation on my part. Just because that seems like more of a property of rubies, but whatever. In those qualities, I guess, you are so merry and so pleasant or joyful that at a ball, when I see you dance, it is an ointment to my wounds. It soothes or heals my afflictions, though you pay no attention to me. And this last line of the stanza, and there's sort of variations of this. Actually, not even variations. That is the last line of each stanza. Though ye to me ne do no dalliance. And this is a play on words. Dalliance can mean just like, you don't talk to me, you don't acknowledge me. The beloved does not know that I am alive, this kind of trope, but it can also mean you refuse to have sex with me. So there's the more sort of social understanding of the word dalliance, and there's also a sexual understanding. So this is one of the cool things about a lot of chivalric poetry, is that while it is this idealization of the beloved and typically written to a female beloved, and so chastity is a big component, modesty, moderation, these kinds of things, all these very seemingly Victorian virtues, the kinds of things that Victorians like to name their children, or that Puritans like to name their children, whatever it is. At the same time, chivalric poetry comes out of a culture that, while it values those attributes, those sort of notions of Christian purity and virginity and things like this, it's also a culture that is deeply rooted in the physical world, and this is a world that produces the carnivalesque, right? The cultural phenomena built around feasting, drinking, free sexuality, etc., etc. This sort of visceral world experience of the carnivalesque. And that often makes its way very subtly into chivalric poetry. There's often a slightly dirty way of reading some of these poems, and I think Chaucer is definitely playing with that here. Again, this idea, the ye to me ne do no dalliance, is, again, both you don't even acknowledge that I'm alive or know that I'm alive, but also you won't fuck me. It is both. And that's one of the fun things I think about medieval literature is today we tend to have this very sort of distinct division, I think, especially in sort of Western culture, between the secular and the profane. And chivalric poetry, chivalric romances, etc., are not necessarily sacred, but their values are rooted in a particular medieval Catholic tradition. And so the values of things like purity, chastity, these kinds of things are rooted in a religious set of values. They also, of course, have social utility in a world in which interpersonal relationships, marriages, etc., are determinants of status, but they have a very strong religious basis. But the profane, the sexual, the erotic, the scatological, things like this, are often blended in with the religious, with the sacred, with the idealized. And so I think that's a really, really cool aspect of medieval literature and culture. I think it's really fascinating. Another thing that I want to mention in this poem, in the third stanza of 3, Chaucer sort of further identifies this poet persona, or this poem, with the chivalric tradition. There's a line here that says that I am true Tristram the second, that I am a second Tristan in my love for you. The love of Tristan and Isolde was a really famous chivalric romantic story. Chaucer wrote his own version of it. And so that reference, again, sort of further solidifies this poem within a larger cultural tradition of chivalric poetry. The last thing I want to say about this, this is a medieval poem, and so it is, of course, a form poem. Free verse did not really exist at the time, and it is a ballade, or a ballad, as we would say today, which means it has a distinct rhyme scheme that gives it a rhythm. And the rhyme scheme here is A, B, A, B, B, C, B, C. And that is the same for each of the three stanzas. The A's are ein sounds: shrine, shine, tine, twine, galentine, and divine. So in all three of the stanzas, the A's rhyme consistently, the B's rhyme consistently, the C's rhyme consistently, and the structure of each stanza is the same. Again, I don't have a massive, as usual with poetry, with rhyme schemes, things like this, I don't have a massive amount to say about it, except that this is a technique for ensuring that these poems are rhythmically consistent, so that they could be set to music. And who knows, to Rosemounde a ballad might have been. I'm not sure.